Hi, Black Gypsy here. In today's pick a card reading, we're going to be talking about what are people afraid to tell you? What are people afraid to tell you? So for pile number 1, we have this toy. And for pile number 2, we have this miniature hat. Pile number 1, pile number 2, timestamps will be in the description box below. This is a disclaimer. In this video, you might find messages that will be very sensitive or offensive to you. If you cannot handle the messages, I advise you to please click off this video and look at my other tarot reading videos. Other than that, thank you, and I'll see you at your pile. Hi, if you chose pile number 1 with the miniature toy, let us see. What are people afraid to tell you? Okay, pile number 1. Before we get into our tarot cards, let us look at the oracle messages that we have for today. We have, I am perceptive. This one says, Sub Rosa, hidden in plain sight, mysteries, learning and teaching. Now onto our tarot cards. The first card we have is the Nine of Swords in reverse. The second card we have is the King of Swords. And the last card we have is the Queen of Swords. So, what are people afraid to tell you? Pile number 1. There is a lot of sword energy, and the swords correlate to communication and the mind. So, what people are afraid to tell you has something to do with how you communicate with others, or how you make people have a certain, you make people think a lot when they are around you. Also, with all these sword energy, I'm getting a sense that people might think you're a very mean person. That's what something I think people are afraid to tell you here. Maybe how you speak. The first card we have is the Nine of Swords, which talks about like anxiety, being very self-conscious, nightmares, or fearing the worst. It's also a card about paranoia. Again, you see how this woman here is with her eyes wide open. I think people, when they come and try to, what people are afraid to tell you is that you give them the creeps on how the way you speak, I think people have to think twice before speaking with you. Maybe you have a very blunt communication, or you just tell the cold, hard truth. And sometimes people may not be prepared for that. With the King of Swords and the Queen of Swords, these two cards talk about, to me, about balance. You have a good balance between your masculine and your feminine side. So that tells me that people can see that you're very confident within yourself. You know when to be in your masculine, like being very maybe aggressive or putting yourself out there or being assertive, as opposed to like being in the Queen of Swords energy where you can choose your words carefully, and that can make people feel a little bit uncomfortable. When I see this I am perceptive card, this is giving me the energy of the people that you interact with. Like, this is giving me, like, you see this woman behind cobwebs. It's giving me like people got to play it safe. Like, they have to play it safe. They have to be very careful with you. It's like they cannot be their authentic self, you know. And with these cobwebs, it's like if they're stiff. They got to be like, yo, pile number one, if I say this, they're going to make me feel stupid. They're going to make me feel inferior, etc., etc. And not only that, but also the way this girl's face is, I'm very drawn to her cold, her eyes, her gray eyes, which reminds me of the cold. What people are afraid to tell you, and I'm noticing her eyes here, there's something about your eyes. You might have a very cold stare. You may not smile a lot. This may not be true for all, but you could have a very, very mean mug face that can come to mind. Also, what people are afraid to tell you is, I'm seeing the owl here, that you are someone that's very, very wise and you're very watchful, right? You're if you pay attention to details closely. So if somebody were to say something, you're really, really quick to catch on that person if they, how can I say this, if they don't practice what they preach. It's like, hey, I remember you said this before, why are you saying this now? And they'll be like, oh, well, that's not what I meant, etc., etc. Hidden in plain sight, mysteries, learning and teaching. I think what people are afraid to tell you is that they can learn a lot from you. Again, with the wisdom card, you're very intelligent. You're someone that's a very, very, very good leader. With the hidden in plain sight, it's giving me like people see you, but again, it's giving me like they may not want to approach you due to the amount of knowledge you may have, or the bluntness that you have within yourself. Okay, so I'm going to go into the truth picture to fine-tune this message a bit further before we close our reading. We have Star. We have Jealous. And then we have Shy. With the Star card, I think what people are afraid to tell you is that despite the fact that you may come across as someone very cold, intimidating, the Star card means that they still find you to be inspirational. They find you to be someone, you know, who who they admire from afar. Okay, like I said, they admire you from afar. They don't want to approach you. They might be intimidated by you, but you stand out no matter what. You know, there's just something about you, the way you talk, your communication, your knowledge. It makes people want to be like, wow, you're amazing. I'm also hearing star student. You could be someone that's very intelligent at your school. You might be performing very well and people admire that. The jealous card could mean that what people are afraid to tell you is that they could be jealous of the knowledge that you know. They could be jealous on how you have your masculine energy and your feminine energy. You know, you seem someone that's very balanced, very grounded. You're also someone that's a leader in a sense, or you're someone that sets an example for others with how you think, with how you communicate, and that can make people jealous because it's going to be hard for people to manipulate you, etc., etc. And then we have the shy card, which ties into the I am perceptive card I mentioned before. People are afraid to approach you. They're very shy. They don't want to be, you know, feel inferior to your knowledge, to communication. They feel like you might slaughter them, like not slaughter them. That's a wrong word to say, but they feel like you might diminish their way of thinking, or they may feel like, oh, I am not as smart as pile number one. I don't want to embarrass myself because I may not know what I'm talking about. Something like that. I'm also noticing with the star card that she has a star under her eye. Again, there's something about the way you stare, your eyes. Maybe people are afraid to tell you about something about your eyes. You might have you might have very pretty eyes, right? Maybe the star could say that you might have some sort of twinkle in your eye, but for the gist of it, like I said before, you might have a very, very cold, hard stare. Okay, there's the owl again. When I think of the owl, I think of their eyes. They're very big. They're very attentive. People might be afraid. They might be afraid of how you look at them, and it could give them the creeps. Again, her eyes there. Something about the way you stare at people or look at people, or how observant you are, and people just like, yeah, I don't want to be around this person. So other than that, that is all I have for you, pile number one. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope to see you in the next one. Hi, if you chose this hat for pile number two, let us see, what are people afraid to tell you? Okay, pile number two. Before we get into our tarot cards, let us look at the oracle messages that we have for today. This message says, I am sacred. This card says, the Great Mother. Surrender to the mystery. Fall into her arms. Now onto our tarot cards. The first card we have is the Three of Wands. The second card is the Page of Cups in reverse. And the third card is the King of Discs in reverse. So, what are people afraid to tell you? Pile number 2. I think what people are afraid to tell you is that you're somebody that is in la la land. Like you are like in another world. Like you're some sort of daydreamer. And I say this because when you see the Three of Wands, we have this man that's just looking out in the horizon. He has his back away from like the viewer, which is like, normally when you see these cards you would see the face of a person, but he's just like looking out in the horizon, you know, just daydreaming. And that's what I think about people. What people are afraid to tell you is that you are just lost in your thoughts. Sometimes when people talk to you, they might think, hey, did this person catch what I'm saying? I said a joke. I didn't even see a smirk. I didn't hear a laugh. It's like people are afraid to think that you may not understand what they're saying, or you might be a little bit immature or what have you. But the gist of it is your head is in the clouds. And the Page of Cups here, that's the same thing. It's like Page of Cups is all about creating relationships, but it's also a card about like creating like fantasies. But it came up in reverse, so you desire something. You desire to make friendships with people, but for some reason you're not initiating it and you're just lost into your mind here. And which leads to the King of Discs. The King of Discs is all about being grounded, being stable, but it's in reverse, right? So people can definitely think that what people might say with the King of Disc here is you could be someone that's a little bit irresponsible. You might not be able to manage money correctly, because like you're in another world, or you're daydreaming a lot. You might not catch up with your tasks on time. If you're someone that's like a younger person, like in your 20s or in your teenage years, you might not be doing your homework on time. You might not be doing your projects on time. Same thing if you're in like older 30s, 40s, what have you. You might someone that just doesn't get your bills paid on time, or you're not doing your work, you're not getting a job, or you're not performing well at your career, etc., etc. I also feel like what people are afraid to tell you is that I'm seeing the King of Disc with the Page of Cups. It's like somebody has to like take care of you, and people might be saying that you might be a bit too old to be taken care of by somebody, and it's time for you to just get out of like this mentality of like things being given to you, or just thinking that the world is behind rose colored glasses, and go out there and make your own money, something like that. With the I Am Sacred card, it just shows a Indian bride, but her eyes are closed. Again, maybe something has something to do with you being in your own little world. Okay, and then we have the Great Mother. Again, with, like I was saying, with the parenting, some people might be afraid to tell you, and this might be within your family, that it's time for you to like stop daydreaming, and it's time for you with that Three of Wands for you to put yourself out there, find opportunities so that you can start, making your own money, or start a project or something. Whereas just like sitting in one place and just daydreaming, you know, thinking like you're still 6 years old and just I don't know, maybe watching cartoons. That's just an example, but that's the gist of it, of what I'm getting with this reading. So I'm going to be pulling 3 cards from my truth picture to fine tune this message a bit further. We have wealthy. We have oblivious. And then we have exotic. Wealthy, oblivious, exotic. With the wealthy card, I think what people are afraid to tell you is that, I was saying that with the King of Discs, you might be being provided by a wealthy person. You don't have to have Donald Trump money to be considered like wealthy, but somebody in your life that's abundant, that they're always constantly providing for you. And now is the time people might want to say you need to provide for yourself. It's time for you to generate your own wealth. Be in that King of Disc energy. Be independent. Be able to manage your own business, or be able to manage your own studies or whatever projects that you're doing, instead of being in this Page of Cups energy, just like daydreaming all the time. The oblivious card, that's self-explanatory. You don't seem to have a care in the world. That's what people are saying. You're very oblivious to like not having certain responsibilities. And people want you to start getting out of this state of oblivion and start being out on the grind and making your own money here. This card kind of correlates with the 3 of Wands. It's like you don't have a care in the world. You have a very free-spirited energy. Some people think you're too free-spirited. Like you should be more serious about life. They might find your free-spiritedness to be very childish, which is why I think the Page of Cups is there. They might find it to be very, very childish. And people might think, because what I'm seeing with that fall into her arms, the Great Mother, this goes back because of your state of oblivion. There's always somebody out there trying to take care of you, and people just want you to be like, no, that's enough. You need to start taking care of yourself. What people are afraid to tell you with the exotic card. You know, I'm trying to tie in the exotic with the I am sacred card. Exotic means something that's foreign. There's probably something about your style, what people might be afraid to tell you. Something about how you present yourself. They might find it to be very, very strange, or very, very like out there, flamboyant. Not saying that the Indian bride is strange or flamboyant, but when I think of like the Indian bride, is very, very exotic. It's very different, as opposed to like how, people get married here, especially the women. They would wear the white dress and the veil, but the Indians, they would wear like very bright colored, I don't know the name of their traditional wedding dress, but they have like the little bindi here with the jewelry. It's just different. Okay, so there's something about your style, and what people are afraid to tell you is that it's just different. It's just maybe a little weird looking. or they might find it to be very beautiful. Either or. You know, with the King of Disc card, I think of the King of Disc as somebody that's very abundant, somebody that has a lot of money. People might find your style to be very, very unique. I'm seeing this person here on the Page of Cups. She has purple hair, her dress, her cup, a little anklet. There's something about your style that people are afraid to tell you. Why would they be afraid to tell you? Maybe it's exotic, it's just different, it's just weird. Maybe people are afraid to take you out places because they don't know what to expect from your style. You might have blue hair and you're wearing a very vintage dress, and people are like, wow, you look really interesting. They won't say that you look really good because they don't know if it's good, because it's just so strange and different. So there's definitely something about your apparel, how you dress. Maybe that's why you chose the hat here. The hat is an accessory. There's something about your fashion that people are afraid to tell you here. Okay, not saying that it's ugly or anything, but people for some reason just can't say that it just looks nice. It just looks rather different. So other than that, that is all I have for you, pile number 2. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.